me propose a question to you guys. When you're a fan of something, and it gets to be adapted into a new medium, do you feel the sense of hope when you're presented with a small sneak peek of it?
Royal straight flush, is it? Laying a hand like that could kill a guy.
How about I buy you around?
Only for it to be dashed away because of some annoying little punk.
Are you even listening to me?
Cause MangaKamen knows that all too well. Yes, hello everyone, I'm back again with another video, and with the upcoming Netflix adaptation of Devil May Cry.
Dang. Man, Skeletor did not hold up since the 80s.
Sweet son of Sparta, give me strength.
You should have quit while you were ahead.
But while I wait for this to come out, and trust me, I will be reviewing this.
Other breaking news. Water. Wet.
Woo! I figured we'd tackle the original Devil May Cry anime today. Why? Well, for the algorithm, of course. What? I'm a YouTuber. I'm a slave to this thing, too. In any case, spoilers for the DMC franchise, the games, the novels, the whole shebang, baby, just in case.
Fuck you!
Okay, maybe not the whole shebang. And remember, my friends,
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Ah, 2007, the year that Britney Spears shaved her head. We were getting controversial and lazy threequels with Shrek 3, Spider-Man 3, and Pirates of the Caribbean, and this was the year of the first Devil May Cry anime. Produced by Studio Madhouse, a 12-episode series that takes place after the events of the original Devil May Cry and before 2 and 4. If you're familiar at all with DMC, you know that the series will follow the charismatic goofball that is Dante.
Did you kill him?
So what if I did?
The half-human, half-demon devil hunter. Well, this anime follows Dante on various jobs, trying to make sure that he's not being drowned by crippling debt.
The water needs turning on and those toilets need flushing.
Not even in the game world can you escape the pit of crippling debt, my friends. The games, save for a couple, are universally praised for their hack-and-slash mechanics, and of course, the over-the-top action. So when you're trying to adapt a series like this to a new format, one of which is animated, it's a given that you'll want to go with a studio that ultimately does have a track record for some great anime. So enter Madhouse, a studio that was known for such classics like Death Note and Trigun, so using them would probably be the best way to capture stuff like this. Oh, sorry, I was mesmerized by the bad attitude on display. If you guys want me to review the DMC games, put down in the comments, "This party's getting crazy, let's rock." 5k likes and I'll do that. But back on to point, it's important to realize that even though you've got an amazing IP and a studio that has a pretty good track record with animation, that does not mean you've struck gold. But that doesn't mean the whole series is bad. If anything, Devil May Cry's anime is more of a guilty pleasure and a conflicting beast of both positive and negative traits. As such, I think it's important that while I enjoy this as a guilty pleasure, I'm not above criticizing it. Hell, most people are willing to make fun of Devil May Cry 2 and are willing to put Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne as the true Devil May Cry 2 because Dante is a recruitable demon in there and has a lot more characterization that's memorable.
So this here's supposed to be Tokyo. Doubt I'd find any sushi or geishas in this hellhole.
Devil May Cry.
If there's one thing to praise with the anime, it's the art direction and design work. The characters from the games actually look like what they're supposed to. When the anime and characters want to look good, they look real good. Of course, there are some times when well, man, why the long face there, Trish? Wait, this is supposed to be the positive section. When the anime wants to look good, it can look really good. The backgrounds can have that element of gothic design that is present in the games, and Madhouse does play a lot with the lighting and shadows of scenes. Neon signs cast glows, the moonlight filtering through the windows, there's a noticeable atmosphere with it, and even more so when there are quieter moments. Hell, the opening scene of the anime when Dante's in the bar really showcases that well, especially with the details like the smoke filtering around the joint, the moth in front of the lights, and when the demons attack, it can really make the scene all the more memorable. Though the design work is what I'm referring to here, and I want to make sure that there is a difference between that and the actual animation of the show, which unfortunately is in the negative category, but we'll get to that later. One thing I will praise is the characterization of the cast, especially those who are actually in the games. Dante himself is a rather telltale sign here, since he's a cocky, pizza-loving, demon slayer badass. And even though I will say he's a bit more subdued than his game counterparts, it feels consistent with where Dante's character was at in the DMC timeline. The only other characters from the games are Trish and Lady, both of whom I'd say are in character. Though it's hard to really say when you're looking at the Devil May Cry games, they mostly take place in more high-octane events where there isn't a lot of downtime to actually focus on the everyday characterization. Which I would argue is another positive to list for the anime, since the day-to-day aspects of Dante's life and his usual job of demon slaying is normally not the focus of the games, and will often choose to focus on one major job that is more than likely requiring a focus on saving the world from the demon menace, usually his brother. I'd argue that in the more recent games, we have gotten better to look at the casual side of these characters, but the anime really does shine a lot better in that regard, since we do get peeks at how Dante interacts with Trish, Lady, and the new companions. I mean, Morrison and Patty are technically canon thanks to Devil May Cry 5, but it's a weird thing since Morrison is white in the anime and black in the actual games, but it's whatever, I guess. My point is that the downtime and the slice of life for a demon hunter isn't a bad idea, and if we had more focus on Dante's character and maybe exploring more of the social aspects of the demon hunter in this, I have no doubt in my mind this would have been a better idea, since people do love Dante as a character. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the music. Oh, the music. One of the best examples is DMC by Rundgren. It is used as the opening and totally fits with the series. It's got this driving guitar riffs and fast-paced rhythm that totally fits with the action that matches Dante's own personality, and it sets the tone for the series, with an ever-growing tempo that matches the rev of an engine that gets you pumped up for action. And it totally fits with the rock traditions of music that Devil May Cry is known for. Stuff like Devils Never Cry or Taste Blood from the original game are what makes this series really well known for its gothic rock. It fits the chill of goth, and has that supernatural finesse that fits Dante's showman nature. It fits with Dante's personality, even if it's a bit more subdued in feeling. It's a lot better than Limp Bizkit that has the same energy as bashing a chair against someone's head. I might have tipped my hand on that one a little too early. But regardless, I do want to make sure that you guys know that while I do consider this to be a guilty pleasure of a series, there are things to like about it. Still, we've gotten to the parts where I think we do need to be discussed in the negative sense. Let's get the biggest issue with the Devil May Cry anime out on the table, the animation. Particularly the fighting animations. Because let's face it, there's one aspect of the games that needed to be done correctly with the anime: the combat. The combat in Devil May Cry's games, even the worst ones, are defined by the stylish combos that you can pull off, juggling enemies with gunfire, swords, and not forget the iconic choreography. And that's no surprise, since a lot of the games would use motion capture to get the best and more natural aspects for the characters when they do their fight choreography. It feels over the top, yet natural at the same time. Meanwhile, in the anime...
Sorry, honey, but this show isn't for kids.
It elects to do a few things I do not like, and I'm pretty sure a lot of others don't like as well. When I was rewatching the anime, I noticed a lot of cutaways from the action, removing the movements and points of impact that make fights all the more impressive. It lacks a lot of the flair and style that the games have, and the anime elects to have more brevity-based fights. They're treated as your standard anime duels, who has quick resolution to the episode's plot rather than being a spectacle of fighting, which isn't helped by the fact that a lot of Dante's moves are just limited to Ebony and Ivory and Rebellion. One of the best parts of Devil May Cry is the amount of weapons that Dante has in his arsenal, each one having its own specific flair and abilities.
In the end, we are all satisfied. You are set free.
So cool! but there's a lack of that. Hell, Dante doesn't even access his Devil Trigger, the iconic demon form that players love to abuse because of its powers and abilities. What I'm getting at is the lack of action versatility that the character Dante is known for is very well noticed in the anime. Hell, in the second episode, there's a chance for some real good action because if you know anything about Dante and what he's capable of with a motorcycle, you know he can work that thing greatly, but instead we get a pretty boring conclusion with minimal effort, and the biggest flag is in the final battle against Sid, or Abigail, the big bad of the anime series, where there's a brief rooftop fight with energy blasts and a stab from Rebellion and it's over. No Devil Trigger, no use of other weapons, and the animation, which you would think for the final episode they would pull out all the stops for the final fight, it just doesn't. And this is a real detriment for Devil May Cry since the series is synonymous with stylish action. That lack of spectacle and personality is a core feature of the Devil May Cry series, and it severely kneecaps the anime, holding back what should be a good time in that regard. And I need to remind you that Madhouse is the studio that made Trigun and Hellsing, and we didn't get that level of energy that was put into those. Now, there's not really an official source as to why this happened, but I'd make a good bet that the reason was because of the workload on Madhouse. Death Note had wrapped up in 2007, and other series like Claymore came out that same year as Devil May Cry, and there are other projects that were developed during that time frame. I'd put good money down on that being the main factor as to why the animation was so lackluster because of the fight scenes, but we can never know for sure. Of course, there's a bigger issue, and that's the fluff.
Hey, you jerks! Come back here!
I mentioned before as a positive that we have a bit more of a slice of life styling for Dante following his job as a demon slayer in the anime, and don't get me wrong, that's something I think could absolutely work, but the problem with how it's with its execution, and well, it's disjointed is the best word I could use for that, I suppose. Let me explain, because instead of focusing on Dante, most of the story is focused on characters who are essentially made for the anime. And some of these can be interesting ideas here and there, such as the job where a former rock star woman was trying to become popular and a demon slowly possesses her, and as such causes her fans who love her music to become like a drug addicts just to get to her concerts. It's a nice parallel with the Little Mermaid motif that's used in the episode, plus the song Mermaid Rock. It's a great tune. Or one of my personal favorites is that there's this one guy trying to stalk Dante in order to get dirt on the Demon Slayer just to prove to his love interest that Dante's a bad guy and he just gets all the bad luck.
Holy shit, he really did! Jesus Christ, who is this maniac? He's gotta be crazy, he's out of his mind!
But it should be easy to see what the issues are becoming rather quickly, and that would be a majority of the focus for these kinds of episodes are based on characters who aren't even from the games. We've never met these characters before, and we don't really care about them, and they just disappear into the ether once they're done with their episodes. When I'm watching a show called Devil May Cry, I kinda want to focus on the characters who are from the games, because that's what's being advertised in the opening in the title itself. It's a lack of focus on the actual protagonist that is the biggest issue in general in this regard, because when you really look at the games, we don't get a lot of fleshing out of Dante's past or social life, and at most you can get from this anime is Dante is in crippling debt, has a pizza tab, and, well...
Get it. That was fast.
I figured you'd be coming in sometime soon.
Okay, that is somewhat disingenuous of me to say, mainly because there are two episodes where there is potential to flesh out Dante's past in some regard. The first is when Dante is found by someone who thinks he's a person named Anthony, a childhood friend who he and his mother were forced to run away from a town when it was beset by demons, with the two of them being blamed for what happened. Because a lot of people did die! Hooray for death! It's an interesting thing, considering that Dante does have the moniker of Tony Redgrave in the novelization of Devil May Cry. It could have easily been tied into Dante's actual backstory since it's always been a bit of a touch and go with that sort of thing in the games. But no, Dante keeps saying he's not this Anthony character, but he actually is, since there's a photo showing a white-haired kid in the anime, and then it's pretty much been confirmed that Dante is Anthony in Before the Nightmare novel. Confirming the events of the first novel of Devil May Cry is canon, so Dante is Tony Redgrave in that regard. Cool! But it's something to consider that there's more focus on Dante wanting to protect the guy who's trying to clear his name, and at the end of it, the guy claims everything that happened is because of Dante, because this guy just wanted to keep summoning demons for some reason. Hooray! The other episode is following the apprentices of Dante's father, Sparta, which gives us a peek into the past of Sparta the Dark Knight, and has a bit more of a focus on the two brother apprentices than Dante himself. I'm not saying these focuses aren't interesting, but considering that they're the minority of what DMC anime does, it makes it hard for me to find the whole thing fun or intriguing. A typical argument raised with this is that the character of Dante is what's important here, and each episode ties into the world of Devil May Cry, where it's set to explore the less bombastic side of the franchise and world. But instead of focusing on the core characters, the episodes spend more runtime on one-off characters who don't really matter. And it's fine to flesh out the world, but there's a great cost when it comes to it. It pretty much ignores Dante as an actual character, which it's not like you can't have Dante have his own development with these kinds of jobs. They could reveal new layers to Dante's character, showing different sides to him, but they don't. It's negligible at best. If we were to cut out the stuff like this and just before the Sid plot kicks up in episode 9, Dante would be the same guy with the same attitude and nothing would be lost. They might be fun to watch and flesh out the world, but they don't really mean anything and are just meant to fill runtime. So it wastes my time! Hooray! Of course, there's a bigger issue in this anime. Better get the booze for this one. So, there's a character I've been dancing around with the anime, and she's a pretty big issue. That would be one Patty Lowell.
Go and buy a new one now! How in the world do you blow through all that money so fast? Dante! So did you have a good look at this? Look here, if you're going to buy me clothes, I want to get some cute stuff. You promised you would. You said if you lost me a card, you'd buy me some clothes.
I didn't say I'd buy them for you today.
That's not fair! That's how it is for girls. You don't understand anything about girls' fashion!
I apologize for making your ears bleed. It's on you for not looking up from your draw tablets, though. You know, there's a trend in shows I really do not like, and that's the inclusion of a kid character. Specifically, the annoying character kid. My first introduction to this annoying trope was Justin from Power Rangers.
I think I know how to save the others. Shift into turbo.
Wow, you sound so excited to become a ranger, kid. You know the kind of trope I'm talking about here. The younger, less capable than the core cast of the show, and are often brought in to add a lighter vibe that clashes with the established tone of the series. These kinds of characters are often paired with an MC to give a different dynamic to the story, but oftentimes, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, Patty starts off as a fake heiress to a vast fortune, with Dante being hired to protect her, while the real inheritor goes to claim the money safely, using Patty as a decoy of sorts. Of course, after the job, Patty, for some inexplicable reason, sticks around the office of Devil May Cry, cleaning the place, oftentimes popping in and out of episodes, and is supposed to give Dante a literary angle as a character. Maybe I'm a little off on this, but what I can see there being three major roles for Patty to fulfill in the anime. The first is to humanize Dante, the second is to be comic relief, and the third is to be a plot device. When you pair a character of this archetype with another, it's supposed to have the effect of showing the human side of the main character. I'm trying to find a good place to find this comparison, but F script consistency and pacing, I'm reminded of Chris Thorndike from the Sonic X anime, because both characters are essentially tacked onto the main cast of a popular game franchise, and they don't really add anything to the character dynamics to the protagonists that they cling to. It's a real shallow bond. Like, if you were to jump into a pool like this, you'd probably bust your head open with how shallow it is. The relationship is only surface level. Patty will nag Dante. He groans. The bickering commences, and repeat. In that sense, Patty is nothing more than a prop for Dante's grumpy but caring personality that's been established in this part of the anime. But it's not like you couldn't have had this sort of thing work. You could have taken the idea of somewhat of a sibling-like relationship for Dante and Patty. After all, Dante is a guy who at this point has lost his mother and his brother, the latter having tried to kill him at least 2 separate occasions at this point in the timeline. It could have been an interesting way to see how the guilt of losing his family causes reluctance to let others close to him, really keen to the emotional core of Dante. But no! And it doesn't help that the anime doesn't really dive into the already existing relationships that Dante has, Lady and Trish primarily, because it would have been nice to see those ties getting fleshed out, but nope! Then there's the character tone of Patty. She's portrayed as this cute, innocent girl meant to lighten up the mood in the dour and Nor-like atmosphere that the anime is going for. But it just totally conflicts with the rest of the show and makes her feel like she's shoehorned into the plot. And finally, plot related. She doesn't really contribute much to the plot outside the first and last couple episodes, where she's shown to be the heir to a powerful alchemist who had sealed away a powerful demon's abilities, where another recurring character, a weak demon named Sid, manages to finagle his way into gaining the powers of Abigail. Yes, Abigail. Almost sounds like the demonic reject of the Golden Girls. The plot expects me to care for this girl and her mother, cheering on Dante to save the bad guy and kill the kid.
No! Let's not do this!
Wait, that's not right. Kill the bad guy and save the kid. Sorry, brain did not work for a second because Patty screwed it up. But because the anime didn't do the legwork to actually make me care for Patty by having a deeper connection to Dante, it just doesn't really hit the emotional beats that I know the anime is trying to accomplish here. Conversely, if you look towards Devil May Cry 3, there's Virgil. You know, the character who's an antagonist, yes, but we actually get to see how he and Dante interact with each other.
You sure know how to throw a party. No food, no drinks, and the only babe just left.
My sincerest apology, brother. I was so eager to see you, I couldn't concentrate on preparations for the bash.
Whatever. At any rate, it's been a whole year since we last met. How about a kiss from your little brother? Or better yet, how about a kiss from this?
It showcases the deep personal stakes between the two, showing that they're both master-class fighters. Their relationship drives the plot of the game, and there's a dynamic tension between the two siblings. Virgil, being the character he actually is, pushes Dante, both in combat and as a personality, and ultimately the two do evolve based on each other's actions with each other. Knowing the internet, I'm sure there are people who are wondering why I'm comparing a little girl to one of the rawest villains in gaming history, but my point is there's an actual impact with Virgil that leaves Dante as a changed person. Meanwhile, Patty, she essentially just makes him into a bystander in his own story. There's a reason why this happens in DMC 5.
Devil May Cry.
Dante, do you have any idea how many times I've tried to call? Like a zillion. Oh my god, tonight's my birthday party. Yeah, I'm turning 18. Not a little kid.
She didn't make a lasting impact on Dante as a character. She wasted time in the anime, and honestly, I wish we didn't really have her in this story. But now, she's canon. Ugh. Thank God Dante ripped out the phone cord.
Okay, Morrison, I'll take you up on that gig, but only if you can get me out of that hellish birthday party.
Look, let's not pretend that the Devil May Cry anime is the worst thing I've ever watched. God knows I've had to watch some utter crap on this channel before just to keep the lights on and them toilets flushing. It's not the worst thing in the world, but by that same token, it's clearly not the best thing either. And that ultimately is a fate worse than death. It's mid. I know that I've always said that tropes in and of themselves are not bad, but the DMC anime really follow the anime tropes too much, and pick some of the worst of them too. There's a reason why video game adaptations had nasty reputations back in the day, even to the point where some of the directors would want to box you. And look, while I'm not going to be throwing shade at the latest incarnation of Devil May Cry anime that's coming out on Netflix after this video comes out yet, I'm gonna be honest, I am skeptical that it's going to be on par with my tastes. Why? Because it's doing something similar to what this anime did, but with a different flavor. It's taking an element out of the original Devil May Cry and casting it to the side. Only instead of the action, which looks at least impressive, it's more or less the lore of the series, which appears to be doing something akin to an Elseworld story. I know there's a bit of a running gag or commentary about the Devil May Cry series that the stories in the games aren't all that deep, so what does it matter? Well, they matter to me. They matter to a lot of people. And I said this publicly a long time ago, and it concerns the idea of adaptations. When you see a new adaptation of beloved series, most of the time, the original material is pushed to the side. Sometimes you get a Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which is an alternative universe / pseudo sequel, or you get Castlevania that just basically takes the skin of the original games with its characters and just does whatever the hell it wants. And it looks like the new Devil May Cry anime is going to be in the latter in that regard. Meanwhile, the one we just got done talking about did somewhat respect the story of Devil May Cry. It just didn't really adapt what made the series truly great. That would be its already established characters and the high-octane action that the series is known for. But hey, that's just my thoughts on the matter. What do you guys think? Tell me what you think of the Devil May Cry anime, whether it be this one or any of the games, or if you have any thoughts or concerns about the new one coming out. I'm always willing to listen to hear your thoughts on the matter. After all, I'm just one guy with one opinion. I'm MangaKamen, my friends. Remember this: devils may cry. Later.
Footsteps can never follow. If you want to live tomorrow, steal a soul for a second chance. The devil's cry.
Jackpot.